This video is going to be a timeless video on playing defense in Madden, talking about coverage shells. Now, I get a lot of questions of how do I stop XYZ out of XYZ, right? How do I stop bunch out of dollar? How do I stop trips out of 6-1? How do I stop tight out of 3-5 odd? How do I stop the run out of 3-5 cub, right? And what I'm attempting to do in this video is put everything that I know about coverage in one video for you guys so that you can look at how you can stop the best formations in Madden within this one video, and then you can cross apply the information that I give you in this video to whatever defense you are running. So we're not going to make this a blitz dependent video, and that's why I'm going to be doing this out of dollar or dime 3-2. Now I have a full defensive ebook on dollar that's completely updated. If you guys want to check that out, that's going to be linked in the description down below. You can sign up for our school community for just $10 and you can get access to my dollar defense. Dollar is always going to be one of those defenses that is good in Madden. It just always is. I've talked about this a lot, but dollar is kind of like the fundamental good defense in Madden for a couple reasons. Alignment, the pressure is normally pretty good out of this, and then adjustments. Dollar gives you the most amount of bang for your buck in terms of adjustments, especially this year because they've added in some new plays. So as far as audibles go for this little mini scheme here, we're going to go cover 6 Willie. We're going to go edge blitz 3. We're going to go with a DB fire 2. And then we're going to have any kind of match coverage that you want to have. I think this year's game, I think quarters is probably slightly better than palms, but that's kind of just opinion, honestly. Let's go edge blitz 3 there, and then let's get the quarters. And then coach adjustments for this is going to be auto flip off, auto alignment on base, option defense on conservative, and there are some formations where we will be using zone drops. Now, in general, this is going to kind of, like I said, it's just going to kind of basically be my tutorial on how to stop some of the most popular formations that you're going to see every single year. All right. So we're going to come out in double safety go. I didn't meant to flip that at this point in the game. And I will do some coverage shells for pressures. I just don't want you to, like, if these blitzes get patched or they don't work in another year's game, it's not really going to, like, you just use the blitz that works in that game, right? So, for example, and I'll just show kind of what I'm talking about. So, like, one of the best blitzes in the game right now is cover 6 Willie. So all we need to do is set up a coverage shell, something like this. And this is going to be a pretty decent little blitz. He got bumped there, but in general, pretty decent little blitz, right? Now, what I want to show you is, this is what I'm talking about the cross application of everything that I'm saying in the video. So another really good 4-man pressure is out of 6-1. So if I wanted to jump in 6-1, I could do something like this, which is a really, really good 4-man pressure here, right? But in general, the way that this would be set up, this would look exactly the same coverage shell wise as our cover 6 Willie did. Okay. So in general, that's just kind of a little bit of a explanation about how to cross apply this stuff. I'll actually do one more cross application and then we'll talk about everything. So if I was to be in like nickel double mug, for example, let's say I come out in, whatever play I want to, we'll just use nickel dog 3 buzz. Well, this is not dollar, this is not 6-1, this is double mug. And maybe you have a slot corner, which we'll show here. So slot corner on this side. Coverage wise, it's basically going to be the same, right? Because what we're going to be doing here is we're going to go slant RD line inside. We're going to have a hook curl, a soft squat, a deep half, an inside quarter, an outside quarter, and a hard flat. So you see here, this basically for all intents and purposes is pretty much exactly the same as what I just showed you at a dollar. It's the same basic coverage shell. Okay. So again, you can cross apply this stuff. And I think it's very important that you guys kind of understand that, because no matter what defense you're running, if you can understand the coverage shell behind whatever the pressure is, it's going to really make a big difference in your defense. So when I say this is a 7-4 coverage shell, that just means we're sitting 4 people at the quarterback, however which way you want to do that. Okay. All right. So Now let's go ahead and actually get into some of my favorite coverage shells against bunch. And bunch in general is kind of expanding every year. It seems like there's a new bunch formation. But in general, the core of a bunch is really these three receivers here to the right side. The running back might be to the left side, he might be to the right side, but in general, the main combination that you have to defend, I don't care what year of bunch you're playing, is some variation of this or some variation of this. This is like the core of bunch. You have to be able to stop this route combination right here. And one of the best ways to stop this combination every single year is to utilize a cover two coverage. So what I like to do is roll my coverage, if you will, over the top of the bunch side. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to have an outside quarter here on the left side. We're going to have an inside quarter here on the left side. We're going to have a hard flat so we don't give up any flat routes. We're going to have our user in this kind of yellow zone area, and then we're just going to have a soft squat and a vertical hook. And the reason this is such a good coverage for bunch is because that soft squat, especially this year, can be switch sticked onto. And if you want to, some years you could do a cloud and a half, but some years, you want to do like a quarter and a soft squat. But these are some very simple things you can do. And then one other little underrated piece of this coverage shell is manning up R1. And if you want to, you can even press him if you want to do that. But this is another variation of kind of the same idea. The vert hook could also be a man up on really anybody on the side. The two most popular would be the slot receiver and the tight end. I really like to man up the slot receiver in most instances. And then this could either be a soft squat or a cloud flat, depending on the year of the game. But in general, this would be kind of something that would be really good against kind of that idea of a flood concept here. As you see, we're able to defend a lot of what they're doing on the right side. Another popular way to defend bunch every single year is actually kind of an inverse variation of this. And this is typically a send 5 look. So I'm going to use DB Fire 2 to kind of illustrate what I'm showing here, because we're going to be sending 5 people at the quarterback. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to still roll over the bunch side, but essentially the way we're going to accomplish that is we're going to have a hard flat from the middle linebacker. We're going to have an outside third or outside quarter on this outside. You could put an outside half as well. These halves are really good for defending one-play touchdown attempts. But typically you're going to see an outside third because you are sending pressure. You don't really need that half. And then you're going to have a middle third from this left side. So you see this would be something that this would look like. Now, if from a user perspective, you're just basically taking the middle of the field. If they run something like verts, this is kind of your area of the field, and then you can switch to go in the middle third and bite down here if you want to do something like that. But those are like the two most popular bunch coverage shells that I know of in the game, and they've really been in the game for a very, very long time. Now, the next coverage shell we're going to get into is a crossman coverage shell against bunch. This has been good for a couple of years. Typically, what you want to do if you're going to do this is you're going to send the slot corner off the left side. So we're just going to anticipate that we're going to send the slot corner. And basically what we're going to do here is we're still going to have kind of that soft squat type of coverage over there on the left side. But basically then from there, we're going to craft a crossman coverage shell. So the way that I like to do this is we're going to man the tight end up with our user, and then we're going to take the other linebacker, man him up to the outside bunch receiver, and then we're going to try to get a press on this slot receiver so it looks kind of like this. And the reason this is really good, if you wanted to, you could flip-flop a couple things about this. You could man up, circle, but the reason that this is such a good coverage show is because it gives you a lot of freedom in terms of how you want to defend the backside guy. One of the easiest things I think to do would be to utilize an outside third and then man that safety up to him like that. So now you kind of have everybody on the field cross man with the exception of the running back. And then your user responsibility, you can always switch stick onto this inside quarter, out inside quarter him here. You can always switch stick onto this inside quarter pretty quickly within the play to be able to get onto something. Or if you wanted to, you could just put your user in a yellow and you can man up the tight end like this. This is another variation, a way to do this. But essentially what this is going to do a really good job of, it's going to do a really good job at defending the play verticals, as you can see here. It just does a really good job of kind of cross-manning the wheel routes, which has been something that you need to do in Bunch for a long time. Another popular way, or something that's growing in popularity with Bunch, is to turn it into basically a 5-wide look. Now, when you see them motion that running back out, he's almost always going to be on a streak or a drag. Those are the two main routes that you're going to see. So if we go back to that kind of original coverage that we were looking at, one of the things I like to do is if they are doing something like this, this would be a good opportunity to situationally go with a cover 2 to the left side and then utilize that middle third here on the right side. The reason that you would want to do something like this is because when they motion that out, the main threat is really the C route on the left side, which they can go to. So it would look something like this, for example, that we have probably a backside post, could be at a double post, but in general, something like this. And so if you look at our coverage shell, what is this able to do? We're able to handle the majority of what they would do, just in terms of their routes. They would have to hit the post route late, which isn't a huge deal, or the drag late. So you see here how we'd kind of user this. They'd have to take that drag late. That's just, you're not going to give up a ton of stuff within that throw. So that is the next coverage shell I wanted to talk about against Bunch. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of defending Bunch is just the idea of deep halving this outside player. And this is a really nice 7-4 coverage shell that really takes advantage of cover 3 to the Bunch side. So basically what you would do is you would have a flat over here, a hook curl, a deep half, and you would shade underneath. So the whole idea behind this coverage shell against Bunch and why it is really effective is that deep half is never going to give up a one-play score. And then if you want to, you can curl flat this outside guy too. But basically what's going to happen here, just in terms of fundamentally how this is going to play out, you can switch stick on the corner routes on the hard flat on the right-hand side. You have a hook curl in the middle of the field in case they, you could switch stick off of that if they run verticals or something like that. But really the whole idea and the main purpose for this this coverage is really for this backside post. So if they're going to try to hit you with a backside post, you're going to see here that this deep half, and I'll show that, you got a little bit of a blitz threat here because you're sitting 4. And then if they try to throw that deep post, you're going to see that that deep half is going to play that consistently over the top. So it's just a way of kind of keeping the top on the roof within this defense. And this is just something situationally that I think is a really, really, really good send for coverage shell. Now we're going to get into how I defend trips every year. These are good trip shells literally every single year. The first one is actually going to be our first variation of a match coverage. So if we jump in here to this, I'll show you one of my favorite ways to defend trips. And this is something that's a match coverage that you wouldn't probably even realize that is a really good match coverage look. So what you're going to do is you're going to audible to edge blitz 3 and you're going to send 4, right? There's a lot of good send 4 shells against trips. And the basic gist of what I want to do defensively here is I want to have that seam flat from the slot cornerback, and then I'm going to put an inside quarter and an outside quarter on that side of the field. And that is going to match all 3 trips receivers on that side of the field. The next thing that I like to do is man my user up to the tight end, because if he runs a post route, I'm going to switch stick off of that. And then on this right-hand side, what I like to do is I like to soft squat. And then if you want to man the running back up, you can. I like to simply leave a vertical hook. This to me is like the most basic good coverage against trips. And what you're going to see is If they run verticals, this is going to just do a really good job. Now, if you see that that tight end goes on a vertical streak or corner, you have to go to the running back here. So you're kind of using here. I see that. Okay. And then I can switch it onto the vert hook. But notice in the replay here how everybody on the trip side is matched really, really, really well. And then you're even getting that soft squat to play that tight end corner. It's one of the most basic coverage shells that I like to use against trips literally every single year because it does a really good job against the main things that they want to do, like streak, corner, flat to both sides. If they want to do something like this coverage shell is going to do a really, really, really good job of taking this away. Just man this up. So you see here, I'll just switch stick to the vert hook, and that takes everything away that they could do on that right side. Another reason why I love this combination of adjustments is because let's say that they want to run kind of the old school trips combos. This is going to do a really good job because you have the seam flats that are going to match. So you'll see here, if I want to run this, you're going to see that this crosser is going to get matched by that quarter all the way across the field. And then all you really need to worry about is the backside in route. So the main thing that you're going to need to think about a little bit with trips, once they kind of start to figure out what you're doing and really where the holes in your coverage is, one of the best things you can do against trips is just a stock cover six. So cover six Willie, and literally all we're going to do here is you are just going to out. It's a little bit different because you have to. Cover six Willie is a little bit of a bad example. I'll show it from cover four palms or just basic cover six. But essentially, what you want to do, let me just throw cover four palms in there. You want palms on this. You don't want quarters. You want palms. That's kind of an important distinction. Palms is just going to play a little bit better for this. You basically want quarters against trips, quarters against like double sets, and palms against stuff like this. So what you're going to do is you'd be something like this. Now, in this example, we are technically sending 4. If you wanted to send 3, be my guest to send 3. The only thing I would do if I was going to send 3 is I would just use it the guy that's on the blitz. That's literally the only thing that I would do. But essentially, what you'll see here is this is just going to cover everything that Trips does really well, and it really does a nice job of taking away corner routes. One of my favorite things about match coverage is it just makes it really hard for that tight end corner route to ever have a chance to get open. So if they want to try to throw this tight end corner route into this match quarter, like that's a really hard throw to consistently complete year after year, down after down. So that's why I like this. If you wanted to do this out of cover six Willie, if you just seam flat an outside quarter, inside quarter, it's gonna basically do the same thing that this coverage would do. And you'll see here, doubles in sale. You see that quarter is gonna match that corner, which is really the biggest thing that you need to have occur. So the match coverage shell is another one of my biggest, most common adjustments against trips. Now, another really simple adjustment that I like against trips is a send 4 adjustment. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to use a roll coverage technique. So we're going to now roll the coverage. So we're going to have an outside third, inside third, and then we're going to take this safety on the right side here, and we're going to put him on a outside third to the right. So you see, this is the idea of like rolling your coverage. What I'll typically do on this as well is it's actually a better shell if we blitz the slot corner and the defense looks more something like this. And now what we're able to do on this backside is we're able to have a coverage that looks like this. This is a very nice coverage shell for trips. This curl flat could be a seam flat. The reason I would like a seam flat is if they're worried about verticals. But another thing you could do is you could shade that down and have a yellow and a hard flat over there on the left side. This is going to be good for some of the horizontal things that people like to do out of trips where they're going to drag the tight end and maybe have like a flat and a comeback route or something. This is a pretty decent way to defend that. And that's also why I tend to like the curl flat a little bit better. But as you can see, this is a pretty decent little coverage shell against trips. So that's another one that I like. And then the other coverage shell that I think a lot of people kind of sleep on against trips is kind of like a basic Mabel coverage. And this is where I would set some zone drops. So you're going to put your flats on 25 or 30, your curl flats on 5, and your hook curls are going to be on 5. And the main reason why I like this coverage is because one of the most popular things that people are going to do out of trips is they are going to throw to the left side of the screen. If you think about it, the slant post combo with the tight end post is going to go to the left, the corner route going to go to the left, the speed out's going to go to the left. A lot of stuff is going to go to the left or just the trip side of the formation. So what I'll do situationally is we'll get into something like, let's say cover 6, we'll go sim 4 like this. And basically all we're going to do is now we're going to craft a roll coverage over the right, but we're going to Mabel the coverage. So what we're going to do is we're going to middle third this safety on the left side. If you want to have a deep half, you can, or an outside third. It's up to you, however you want to do that. I think the deep half is less susceptible to seam streaks. And then we're just going to soft squat and we're going to curl flat. And basically, we do have within this defense a little bit of a vulnerability in the middle of the field. But in general, you can kind of user that, make it for that with your user. For example, let's say you get something like this combination here. This would give this a little bit of trouble. But basically, what you're going to do is you're just going to take this tight end, and then you're just going to kind of bail back to the running back. And you see how this is just going to do a really good job of defending kind of that left side area of the field. The last adjustment that you will typically see year in and year out against trips is a cross man setup. This was made popular in Madden 23, and you don't really need to set zone drops for this, so I'm actually going to go take them off because I did want to show you one thing that I think is kind of interesting. So again, we're just going to come out, no zone drops, and we're going to be in our double safety defense. And for this one, I'm going to set up your old school like slant post combination. So what you want to do whenever you're utilizing the cross manning setup is typically you're going to have a cross man onto the linebacker onto circle, the slot corner onto the slot receiver. And then with these safeties, you can kind of do a couple of little things. It really is honestly up to you in terms of how you want to do it. I'm going to give you two variations. The first one would be just to take this safety and just imagine he's a little bit back here. Would probably be better for the crossman aspect. But you have the cloud flat that kind of shelters that, and then you're going to be able to get this guy to lurk the solo receiver. So it looks something like this here. And then the big thing is I would 100% man the tight end up. I think manning the tight end up is really helpful in this. You could get to it a couple different ways. One of the ways is you could inside third and man up your user on him so you could switch stick. Either way is fine. But this is just a really nice coverage shell for trips. And if the tight end goes on a corner route, you don't have to care, and then you can just use it over the middle. But if the tight end goes on a post, you'll see right here, we can just switch stick off of him and take this guy and lurk underneath. And it's going to be pretty decent coverage overall. So that's the first method that you can do a cross man. The second method that you could do with cross manning is we could do a outside third, inside third, here to the left hand side, and then we could cross man two receivers in the trips formation like this. This is a little safer of a shell, and basically the idea here would be for you to switch stick onto the deep half if you see that tight end goes on a corner or goes vertical in any way, shape, or form. But as you can see, these crossband setups are really good against trips tight end. The next play that we're going to, or formation that we're going to be taking a look at here is tight. And this is a fairly simple one to break down. Defensively, there's really a couple of shells that I think are really valuable. The first one is going to be just a basic cover 4 shade underneath, and you're going to send 3. So I'm not even going to really, I'm going to do it like this typically, but this is like the most basic way to defend tight, but it actually does a really good job. Again, you want to shade down, really important. You have to shade this underneath. But if you think about what tight does well, it's going to have corner routes on both sides. And so you just want to be in a position where you can force them to have to throw in the middle of the field. And these cover four is going to bracket tight really well on both sides of the formation, which is a great option. Again, we're literally just going to come out. We're going to shade this down. You know, if you want to make it look the same, you could do this. You know, whatever you want to do with your user, don't really care. But in general, you know, one of the biggest things is user, specifically against tight, is typically user the running back side is going to be a little bit better than user in the other side. And the reason why is because they typically put the running back to the short side of the field. And so that allows us to kind of, okay, we could take this short side corner route, and then the wide side corner route is going to get bagged typically by that outside quarter. So that's one of the most like basic ways to defend tight. If you think about tight, all we want to do is we just want to try to constrain the space of the field that tight can actually hurt us on, which typically is going to be the corner routes, almost always. So the next coverage shell is a double Mabel coverage shell, so flats on 30 or 25, curl flats on 5, and hook curls on 3. And for this, what I like to do is actually do it out of a cover 4 because we don't really need these deep halves. We want these quarters because these quarters will help defend seam streaks. So however you want to do it, I would almost always blitz my user. And the reason why is because I don't really need to switch stick much out of this shell. But basically, we're just going to soft squat the outside guys. We have that hook curl on the left side, which is going to, you always want your hook curls to the wide side of the field so that they can play more space on the field. You don't want your hook curls to the short side typically. And this is just going to do a good job, again, against that streak corner combo that people like to do. And then if there's anything over the middle and the back side, we can typically take that away. But as you see, both corner routes get bagged really nicely by this double Mabel type of coverage shell that I think is really, really, really important to have when we talk about defending any kind of like compression 2x2 set. And this doesn't, again, this is going to apply to more than just tight open, but it is just something that I did want to mention. Another thing you can do with this that I've always loved against tight, and just to illustrate, this isn't just tight open. We can get into a formation like tight Y off, for example, and it's literally going to be almost identical, right? You got 2x2 compression on both sides. It's very similar formation layout. So this next thing that I like to do is something that I think is pretty interesting against tight, but again, now what we're going to do is we're just going to Mabel one side of the field and we're going to cover for the other. So what I'll do is I'll cover for the wide side and I'll Mabel the short side. Another way you could do it is you could roll the coverage. So it could look something like this. This is also fine. This is going to be a little bit more susceptible to a seam streak on the right side, but you're going to get a little bit better outside coverage. But in general, you know, this is something that also that you can do, and it's going to give tight a lot of issues, a lot of issues. So I really like the combination of either a Mabel coverage or a shaded down cover 4, and then I'm going to also give you for tight a send 5 look, a send 5 pressure. So as well, I might even give you a send 4 too. So if you want to send 5 against tight, typically what you have to understand is you want to send 5 very similarly to the way you want to send 5 against bunch. So like let's say we just want to use DB fire to show this. So this is a send 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to soft squat or cloud the short side. So it basically would be like a deep quarter on the left, a middle third on the right, and then a deep half on the, or a middle third on the left, and then a deep half on the right. So look like this. And then we're just going to hard flat this linebacker. The reason this is going to be a good coverage shell is because we help defend the sidelines on both sides. We funnel everything back in the middle to our user, and we're able to send 5 off the shell, which is going to speed up the rate at which the routes are going to be open. Now, if I wanted to send 4, a nice send 4 coverage shell against this would be really something very simple. And the biggest thing with this is you would just flat this guy on the left side. I'm typically going to do something like this right here. This is to me, oops, the third there. Either a cover 2 with a vert hook. That's a variation. I really like having deep halves and inside quarters. I think just because, again, this just helps take away the seams, which I think is really hard to cover in this game. So something like this is pretty decent right? Because you have a lot of coverage here to the right side. You're able to kind of be more over here to the left side with your defense. Another thing that you could do, though, is you could do something like this, or you could do something like this. This is perfectly fine. The one thing I would say is like a coverage shell like this, the reason that this is not ideal is because they can hit you in the seam on the left side. So what you would probably, want is you would want a quarter here, right? And then you would want to have either a quarter here or, this would be something that I would actually run would be something like this. And again, the reason why either a half or a quarter, if you're going to do a half, you need to do a middle third. But this right here is pretty nice shell for defending tight. As you can see, I'm just going to be a little bit more in the middle of the field. So the next formation that I get asked a ton about how to defend in Madden literally every year is some form of five wide. Could be a lot of different variations, but basically, how do you stop five wide? I'm going to give you a very simple answer. I think the easiest way to stop five wide consistently is through sending good pressure, so they have to actually block somebody, and then basically taking away the seams. If you take away the seams, five wide's going to struggle. So a very simple shell to me would be a send four shell like this. And all we're going to do is we're going to hard flat the slot corner, inside quarter this guy. And then if you want to have a full on cover four shade underneath, this is I think this is decent five wide defense. Just a basic cover four because you're going to get good pressure. You're able to kind of lurk the middle. And then again, the biggest thing we can do against five wide, and really the most important thing we can do against five wide, is defend the seam streaks. If you can defend the seam streaks, you can play defense against five wide. Another one that I think is really actually pretty decent is just a match coverage look like this, like a basic palms. And the reason why I like this is because if you only send three here, this is going to do okay against five wide, especially if they're running like verticals and stuff. You're just gonna do a really good job against the seams. That's the main reason why I like it. And then kind of a hybrid or a mix of this would be to do something like this off of a Send 4, where we have kind of this cover 3 match where we're going to use kind of those same principles from trips. Because again, 5 wide is typically trips to one side and doubles to the other side. So what we'll do here is we're going to go with a inside quarter, outside quarter on that right side. We have that seam flat. And then what I like to do here on the left-hand side is a deep half, a soft squat, and a vert hook. Something like this I think is really good against 5 wide because you make it hard for them to hit the corners on both sides. And then again, you're able to defend the seams. Notice how a lot of my defensive strategy is going to be built around how do we stop the seams, because the seams are something that you need to be able to stop no matter what the year of the game is. And then another shell that I like against 5 wide is kind of just your basic shell. Again, you just have to worry so much about the seams on both sides. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll just man up the seam. So as you see here on the left side, the slot corner is going to be manned up. And then on the right side, I'm a really big believer in kind of like just a cover 3. And if we ever wanted to situationally do a coverage like this, I'd probably want to have an outside third here. But this vertical hook will do a really good job against that slot. And then basically my job is going to be to defend this third receiver, this number 3. I think this is a decent shell for trips as kind of a mix-up, man-up look. It's going to kind of help take away some of the things that have been left open. And then you're going to have stuff like this. Another really underrated, I think, defense against 5 wide is really an all-out kind of cover 2 sink type of look. And what I mean by cover 2 sink is you need to have a middle third. So as you see here, we're going to use outside thirds. And the reason why this is a really good coverage shell for tight or for 5 wide is because these soft squats, you could cloud flat them on the outside as well. They're just going to do a good job of taking away like comeback routes, things like that, and just kind of keep everything underneath. They have to throw underneath. The vert hooks match the seam streaks perfectly. And then as you see, they just have to basically, throw the ball underneath of the defense. So that's another thing that I would do if I was defending 5 wide. But really, I would just try to send 4, send 5. You could, every single year, I see people do this, and it is effective, where you just say, okay, we're going to play man-to-man, and you could even press it. So we're going to just press man, as many, basically we're going to press as many people as we can. So we're going to press man these two slots like so, which is going to take them out of the game. And then you can have like a cover three and that you run into a cover two like this. I think this is probably the best way to do it. But the only thing with the cover two on the right is sometimes it can get manipulated and bombed. So what I would probably do is roll it like this and play cover two to the short side. But this in general is a fairly good shell for this because you can switch stick out of this and be in a pretty good position to defend a lot of what five wide has to offer. I can just switch stick here, and you see that we can take away a lot of the throwing lanes that they have. Last thing I want to go over is any kind of under center set like stretch, any kind of that stuff that you'll see eye close. This I'm going to try to keep as simple as possible because you don't see this a ton. And when you do, it's pretty predictable what you're going to get. So there's really two things that you can do. Number one, you can go all out run defense, but I think the easiest thing to do is just come out in a cover two and literally just play cloud flats on the outside. So we're just going to shade underneath. We're going to play cloud flats now, turn these guys into cloud flats. And then if you want to pinch and contain, and you're just going to use the vert hook that's on the weak side. And this to me is the best way to stop under center because you're going to stop the run really well. You basically almost always, when you're playing an under center set, you want to have some type of way to basically take away the outside run. If you can take away the outside run, then you can almost always take away the inside run, right? So again, something like this to me is really good against under center sets because if they do pass the ball, when they pass out of under center sets, you're almost always going to see corner routes. Like always, always, always see corner routes. So you do something like this, and now the corner routes are going to be taken away on both sides. You're going to get those seam streaks taken away. To me, this is just a very good way to defend under center. Another simple way to defend under center. Again, most under center formations are going to look, unless it's like a pro set like this, they're going to be basic variations of the shotgun formations themselves. But the biggest thing I want to show you here is if it's an under center formation, what you need to see is like this, where can they actually pass this ball? Like based on who's on the field, how are they actually able to consistently pass the ball? So this is where we can do things again, like what I was saying with, really on the left side, there's not a lot they can do. So we could do a coverage like this. And this is a fairly, favorable position to be in because we take away the corner to the right side. We take away the streak over the middle. Like we just take away everything that they have to offer, and then they run the ball. Okay, well we're still in pretty good position to handle that. And this cross applies out of dollar. You don't have to just do this out of dollar. One of the best run defenses every single year is some form of 6-1 where we're just going to blitz these outside linebackers, right? And then basically what we're going to be able to do from this is we can just craft a coverage. So we're going to blitz the strong side linebacker. We're not going to blitz the weak side linebacker. And it would basically look something like this. This is almost identical to what I just showed you at a dollar. It's just out of 6-1. And now, maybe you have a little bit better user area, but in general, the coverage is pretty much the same. And you're going to get the same results where you're taking away the corner routes, you're taking away the big play stuff, and you're forcing the offense to have to throw in the hardest area of the field, which is my whole defensive philosophy. I want to thank you for watching this video. I hope that this video kind of helped give you a little bit of a guide that you can cross apply as you go through your Madden career. A lot of this stuff works in college football too. And if you want to deep dive any of the defenses I showed you in the video, make sure that you join our school community. That's where you'll get access to all of my offensive and defensive ebooks for just $10. You're going to get access to college football and Madden 25, everything you need to know to get better at both games. You can sign up for that at the link in the description down below.